Hi, good afternoon. I am here with Harold Reeves still. We're going to do a couple of these vignettes this afternoon, but I'm here with Harold Reeves, and he is the regional product manager for our mobile computing portfolio for North America. Harold, one of the things that we have talked about many times, and one of the things you've been kind enough to speak with quite a few of my partners about is how is Android different? It's a new world, and I'm trying to make sure that the partners are aware of exactly what it is we're talking about when we say something like that, that it's different. Selling Android is different than selling Windows mobile computers in the past.
Probably the first place to start is just in terms of investment. There are not any new features or enhancements being added to Windows CE in the operating system, and we've seen that in the plans from the operating system provider Microsoft. Extremely limited. We're in an extended life support operation for that operating system, and the features have not been enhanced in a few years. When we look at the comparison to an Android operating system, we're seeing new major releases on a 12 to 18 month cycle. It's actually condensing really close to 12 months now, and you're getting this feature advancement or enhancement in every release. There's new things and new approaches and new items that are added to each release, and so we've got a dynamic environment that's going in and adding not only tools for the end user interface and how we interact with our end user, but tools around security and tools around efficiency in the operating system. So it's a very dynamic environment compared to the CE environment. When we look at security concepts, it's fair to state that it's limited in the Windows CE world. We have to roll back the clock for the security implementations that we use with Windows CE, and that's from an application base in the operating system. That the CE operating system doesn't have a concept of privilege or anything like that. Once your application compiles, it has the authority to do anything on the device that it can reach out and do, and so you have to be very careful when you write your applications in CE to protect your memory, to protect your data, and to really keep things organized. And there's an extension from that it's security too, in physical security in the way we encrypt data. The technology's older, the processors are slower, the RAM is smaller. There's less room and time to go and do complex security with communications and with encryption in writing things to a file. So it's just limited. That's a great way to put it, as limited. When we look over at the Android operating system, the operating system starts with a concept of security from the beginning. It's a privilege-based architecture, and you have concepts as we look into Android, as we get into modern releases of Android, Marshmallow and Nougat and Oreo and Pie, and going forward, we have the device owner concept, which gives us the privilege as an enterprise to be the owner of the asset and to be in charge of that device for what applications can be installed, when applications can be updated, and how we tune the device and manage it. So we get a lot more control as a device owner in Android with the architecture the way it's implemented. We also have modern support for technologies and protocols, and this goes all the way down to the browser and how it does encryption and communication to supporting multi-user MIMO 802.11ac in the chipset. Those are things that can't even be implemented in a Windows CE architecture without a lot of investment. You get all that by default when you move to these modern chipsets and modern operating systems. When we look at how we patch and how we look at support, the CE operating system is best defined as ad hoc. If something comes along and either the OEM, like Zebra, is capable of doing it, or the operating system provider decides that it's worthwhile, you get a patch. We had this, we had a couple of rounds in 2017 and started 2018 with a couple of threats that came out. Zebra was able to do a little bit with the wireless driver because we had written the wireless driver, but at an operating system and chipset level, we did not get patches back from the chipset or the operating system teams in this limited support patch. So we have some scenarios where we just don't get a regular cadence. We get what we get in the Windows CE environment. Contrast that with an Android environment where Zebra, if you're on our current OS, it's 30 days, which matches the Google cadence for the current release of the operating system. Google's on a 30-day cadence announcing risk and posting the updates, and Zebra is following as an OEM with that same promise on a 30-day cadence. In fact, we're within just a handful of days of the Google release of each of those patches. We're posting the Zebra patches across the portfolio, and we're able to see where we go. Now, we go and bundle in what the development and management tools look like. It's also another scenario that's very interesting. If you try to write native to a Windows CE app, you've got to have some very specific tools or a very specific archive of tools to put together your apps and to do your testing and your validation. There are no new modern tools for developing Windows CE apps. Now, you can do some thin client things to kind of bridge that and keep away from being at risk. But again, if you're trying to write native and trying to get the most out of the hardware, very challenging environment. When we look over at the Android operating system and the availability of tools, it is just wide open for what's going on. It's where all the investment is in the environments today. You have tool sets and a knowledge base of people that can get out there and do things at a good competitive cost and be efficient in the way they write apps. We also have a third-party environment that's extremely rich, and it can be third-party, as we see in the Google GMS Play Store type arrangement, and also third parties that are writing and writing so that applications can be side-loaded, so that you have a nice arrangement for the tools available to our end customers and how they'd like to deploy. Again, you can kind of go open source. You can go into the Play Store and pay for use, and you can go into the third-party world for sideload and get very specific apps with tuning exactly like you'd like, or even go into native source development for where you'd like to go. It's a very nice environment for where we're at. Now, if we want to try and kind of look at Android just in terms of what the environment looks like, it's good for us to go and get an idea of what the releases are and the cadences are, and you can see when we look at just the last 3 years, that 18-month cadence is really dropping down to 12 months every August. We're getting an announcement in the spring and a release in August for operating systems, where you can see the N, O, and P operating systems releasing. And so you've got a nice aggressive cadence from the operating system supplier. You've got tools and feature sets that are going across the versions and making applications go across the operating system releases. And you've got, again, like I said, that developer environment that's excited about the investment going on in this world.
Excellent. So one thing I was thinking, and seeing all these different versions kind of matrix out on the screen here, it makes me think of security, and you mentioned it, but there may be situations where we will not be able to do a patch. And what we do know right now that as of was January 13th, January 14th, whatever day of 2020, Microsoft has, they're wiping their hands of the support, extended support ends of that date, and even now, 15 months ahead of time, it's been left up to a lot of the manufacturers to kind of do their own patches where possible. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great way. And the analogy I was using earlier, we can specifically call out crack as the weapon.
You're right.
Yeah, with crack, Zebra had written our own drivers for wireless LAN, so we were able to go in and provide a patch for crack into our customer base and make that available. The generic Wi-Fi drivers from Microsoft in this deployment never got a patch for that arrangement. Now, there were some other threats that were down at the operating system and chipset, the firmware for the chipset level interacting with the operating system, where Zebra doesn't have access to rewrite the operating system piece, where Microsoft elected not to post a patch. Their recommendation was to upgrade hardware if that threat couldn't be mitigated through compensating controls. So, that's where we're at. It's an opinion in this extended support arrangement of Microsoft's opinion if it's worth doing the update or doing the patch at the risk to the deployed hardware. So that's again, it's something where there's not a lot of control from an OEM's perspective or an end user or a partner perspective on what we have, and we want to be sure that we understand that extended support life cycle is not a guarantee of support. It's an offer that may be implemented.
Right. So right now, just in conclusion, we are in the extended support cycle of the legacy versions of Windows Mobile and Windows CE, at least Windows Mobile through January 2020. And it was their, using your word, it was their opinion that they didn't need to write any patches for these recent security vulnerabilities that were discovered. Luckily, in some of the cases, we were able to, because of the, we were doing the Wi-Fi drivers and that sort of thing. However, it was their opinion not to do that, and they did not. So actually, 15 months from now, they're not going to do it because that will be clearly past the date of their support. Right now, it's their prerogative, but in 15 months from now, they won't be doing it no matter what.
Right, that would be our assumption, that as soon as we exit the extended support period, that the default answer will be no.
Okay.
There will be no patch.
Okay, all right. Harold, thanks so much for all the clarification and going over those 2 slides with us this afternoon.
Anytime, Mark.
All righty, excellent.